Good afternoon. Fellow lovers of liberty, can I hear you? Are you out there? I knew we could do that. My name is Rob Schilling. I'm a radio host from Charlottesville, Virginia, the Democratic Socialist Republic of Charlottesville. And you know what? We give it to them every single day. We tell them what liberty is all about, and they don't want to hear it. There have been attempts within that place to shut me and the likes of me up, to get me off the air. But that's the problem that we face today in America, and I think it's why we're all here today in Virginia. We have a beautiful day. I want to thank Donna Holt for putting this together and the Virginia Campaign for Liberty. Let's say thank you. And also to Jordan Page. That was amazing. Jordan, thank you so much. Wonderful music. I enjoyed interviewing you last week. It was terrific. You know, I think there's something that I need to start out with because I'm sure there's nobody here that's wondering about this hair, but just in case there's one person, I'm going to talk about it for just a minute. When I moved from California to Charlottesville, Virginia, the Democratic Socialist Republic of Charlottesville, I had no idea where I was going. I didn't realize the politics that were going on there, and it was so corrupt that I decided to run for local office. And this is what I look like. And I had a lot of people coming up to me and saying, Republicans can't look like that. I was running as a Republican in a place where there had not been a Republican elected since 1986, and this was in 2002. And they said, you can't look like that. A Republican can't look like that. Well, I look like this, and I was elected in spite of it, or maybe because of it, because a lot of people thought I was a Democrat. But we did crash their party, so to speak, and had 4 years of being inside the belly of the beast in Charlottesville City Hall, and I learned the corruption of local government. I learned how to spot phony politicians. And when I had more and more people saying, well, gosh, if you want to go further in politics, Republicans can't look like that, I just stopped being a Republican. So, I am now a constitutional conservative. But perhaps this is my outward expression of individual liberty, and we all have those things. I wanted to talk to you today to kick everything off, and Donna said, you know, you're a radio guy, and you know how to keep time. That's why I'm here. We're already behind, so I'm going to try and make this very quick so that we don't fall too far behind in the program today. But about the issue of state sovereignty, you know, we've been a nation that's been asleep for a long time, and we have to be aware of that because we cannot be lulled into complacency. It's essentially human nature that we fight. And we can see this throughout the history of the world, that whenever peoples became complacent, it was because there were times of plenty, and it's what happened in America. We thought everything was okay. As our individual liberties were eventually eroded and eroded and eroded to such a point that in a few years we're not even going to be able to buy the light bulb of our choice, if you can imagine that. It's really disgusting, but they have banned, our Congress has banned the incandescent light bulbs. And that's such a small thing, but really I think it's indicative of the loss of liberty. And so now states are threatened, and I watch these various threats in Arizona, and I mentioned to you that I come from the West, and I understand the threat of an invasion of America. We love people. My grandparents came through Ellis Island, but we want people to follow the laws. We are a nation of laws. And so when a state comes forward and says no more because the federal government has abdicated its duty, and the President of the United States sides with a foreign country over one of the 50 states, we're in trouble in America. But that's not the only threat. Look at excessive taxation, and we have people in the Democratic Socialist Republic of Charlottesville, and I'm sure it's not unique, who came to the Board of Supervisor meetings in Albemarle County and said, raise my taxes, raise my taxes. They are brainwashed. They're brainwashed through government schools. I'm sad to say I'm a product of government schools, but I would never, ever send my 6-year-old son, and we have taken on the responsibility of homeschooling him because I have seen the danger. When I see a 12th grade student from Albemarle High School come before the Board of Supervisors, someone who is supposed to understand the Constitution and American history, and say, oh, please raise my taxes, but you know what? She doesn't pay taxes. She's asking you to raise her neighbor's taxes. It was absolutely disgusting to witness this, but this is what's going on today. It's educational tyranny, where people are being schooled to graduate dependent upon the government with their mouths open and their hands out. And we have to be aware that that is a danger to the republic. And there are so many other things. Look at healthcare that was rammed down our throat. The sort of healthcare system that you would expect to see in other democratic socialist republics all over Europe. And yet we had people that sold out America. People that were willing to stand up and say, I don't care if it's constitutional. I'm going to vote for it anyway because I think it's good for you. I was at a rally in front of our congressman's office, and I will not call him representative, but his last name is Perriello. And there were two able-bodied people that came forward, young people. And I had my 1-year-old daughter at the time, my 5-year-old son at the time standing with us at this rally. They had no idea what was going on. But two people in their 20s came up with hats on that said, thank you for paying for my health care and staring down at my little children. And I was absolutely disgusted. But it's the mentality in America today, and it's why we need to remember the sovereignty of states. We have some heroes on the horizon and people that we could say thank you to, like Delegate Bob Marshall, who brought forward the Virginia Healthcare Freedom Act. And I'm so grateful that we live in Virginia with a Healthcare Freedom Act, even though we have people in the state supposedly representing us who thought it was a good idea as your representative, people like Delegate David Toscano in our area, Senator Cree Deeds, who said, you don't deserve that freedom. You know, this bill was very simple. It said this federal government can't force us to purchase insurance, and if we don't, the federal government can't fine us. And yet there were a good number of people who were elected right here in Virginia who said, you can't have that right. And that is why we're here today, to understand the importance of state sovereignty. Because this state came forward and said, no, you don't. And I'm so honored to live in a state that has an attorney general like Ken Cuccinelli. Yes. Because I saw Ken Cuccinelli 2 years ago before he was elected coming around to us, and I heard him talking, and he was already getting ready for this battle. He was working with organizations like the Institute for Justice and others, and they were laying the legal foundations to defend Virginia against an overreaching federal government. And it was wonderful to see him at the time. I cannot fathom the difference we would have today if his opponent, Steve Shannon, had been elected. This guy would have gone and crawled in the corner and done nothing to protect you or me or the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so we have somebody who's actually on our side. But you know what? We have real problems as well. And I'm not sure exactly how we're going to address those problems. But I do know there are people thinking about these issues. I had a guest on my radio program not long ago by the name of Thomas Moore, who has been gathering with a group of people and delegates called the Southern National Congress. And they have been looking at what happens if we just don't have the opportunity to make the changes. What if they send the federal government in and force Virginia to purchase health care? Or what happens in Arizona if they just say, no, you can't enforce these laws and you have to be overrun? Well, they've been thinking about it. And when he was talking about the concept, I said, are you talking about secession? He said, not necessarily, but we're putting things in line if we need to have some alternative form of government. And I got to think, wouldn't it be wonderful here in America if we had the states the way they were envisioned? And those of us who chose to live in free states that were not under the mandate of the federal government, where people went there to be successful and prosperous, where people went there because they wanted to be productive and to be responsible for themselves. I think personal responsibility has been lost. If we had this opportunity and this choice in America to choose to live in a state like that, you know what? If it wasn't Virginia, I'd move there if it happened. But you know what would happen? People would self-select. And think about this. The states that were free states, you would have people who were responsible for themselves, even if they weren't wealthy, would want to go there and be a part of that place. And the people who were not would go to the states perhaps in the Northeast, California, where I came from, and we would see a real dichotomy. We would see what would happen would be the states where they were offering freedom and they promoted prosperity and self-responsibility would rise, and the other states would crumble under the burden. Right now, we're all sharing this burden. It's something we're going to be talking about today during the course of this time, and I'm so glad that you're here. I want to thank you for coming. We're going to have a great time today, and we're going to learn a lot. Thank you so much.